I don't think that I'm the best person for how to grow your community, because my answer is always that the content is queen. Content is queen.
That's why she asked you about how you come up with the content. Hey everyone, welcome to Nicole Reacts, where I, Nicole, react to online marketing gurus that I find on the internet. My qualifications for snark and commentary on this topic are that I've owned a marketing company for the last 14 years. I've worked with hundreds of clients. In addition to that, I've experimented marketing-wise with my own businesses. So I feel like not only do I have a good idea of what the marketing trends are and what's going on, but also what small businesses need when it comes to their marketing. So today's person is Rachel Hollis. I'm not going to give a huge background on her because I did a previous video about Rachel Hollis where I did give a lot of background. I also did a video about Dave Hollis, whose monetization strategies came into convergence with Rachel Hollis when they were married. I'll link those two videos below in case you want a little bit more background. But Rachel Hollis, at one point, well, she still does, has a sort of events marketing media company called the Hollis Company. Right before COVID, I think they had 50 or 60 employees. Now I think they have some indeterminate number, but people have speculated it's as low as 2, maybe 0 employees besides Rachel, with all subcontractor labor. And some people say that it's under 10 employees. So I will find some stats about what I think the size of the company is and link it below. But point being is she's gone from running a very big company to running a much smaller company. And her whole company at this point is producing content. She's going on tour in a couple of months, a 10-city tour with her Rach Talk series, which is a YouTube series, but it's a little unclear what the event is actually going to be about. Is it going to be like a talk show? Is it going to be interactive? It's hard to say. She hasn't really put much out there. She said it's not going to be like Rise, but in all the promotional videos, she shows the Rise conference, which is the previous women's conference that she used to hold when she was a much larger company. So the video we're reacting to today was published July 16 on her YouTube channel. I'll link the original video below, as I usually do. And the title of the video is Created Content. So I'm very curious to react to this because she's a small business owner who used to have a big team, now has a much smaller team, and her business is creating content. So ideally, Rachel Hollis has the financial resources and bandwidth and purpose to create more content than the average small business owner. So I'll be curious what she recommends in terms of content creation, as well as if she acknowledges that she is in the position to be able to create more content because that is her whole business, and because she has financial and other resources that allow her to devote her full-time energies to content creation. So without further ado, let's see our gal Rach.
Hey guys, it's Rachel Hollis, and welcome to another episode of the Rachel Hollis podcast. Today we're talking about content creation. More specifically, how do I personally figure out what I'm going to make podcast episodes about, or what I'm going to write about in my next book, or what I'm going to put in the Sunday email? I have been creating content online since 2008. What is that, 14 years? For
Me
as
too,
long as
Rach.
I've been doing it, I have been in community with my audience, even when that audience was only 3 people. And slowly but surely, I feel like I've found a really good rhythm that works for me. My advice is going to be a lot more, how do you do this in a way that's effective, but also feels really good? And in my personal opinion, the most success that I've had in life is when I was doing it this way. Let's listen to the question that I got, and then we'll get into my answer.
Hey, Rachel. I am listening to your podcast. So I'm trying to scale my business, and I think it would be really helpful to see your email list. How do you do that? How do you sit down to write your emails? What does that look like? I'm more into the business side of it. So you could just do a video, a podcast, whatever, about what does it look like when you sit down to reach out to your email list subscribers subscribers and talk to them? And how do you plan your content for that? Just curious. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. I'll chat with you later. Bye.
Okay, so
the question is about not all of the content she creates, not how she creates a plan for what she posts to her podcast and what she writes in her books and what she puts in her Sunday newsletter, which is kind of what she alluded to. The actual question was just, how do you figure out what topics you write in your Sunday newsletter, which, to be clear, is a once a week newsletter. So let's see if she answers the original question that she said she was going to answer, or the one that the caller just asked, because one is a little bit more limited than the other.
Let's look, I guess, behind the curtain and explain to you how I figure out what I'm doing. I think that it's really important for you as a creative or a business owner. And frankly, if you're a business owner in 2022 and you're listening to this, there's a really strong chance that you are a content creator or that you understand that you need to become one. One of the things that I think is so smart for anyone who sees a future for themselves creating in whatever modality is to watch other people's creative process as much as you possibly can. It's one of the reasons that I love interviewing creatives in industries I'm not inside of. So I've interviewed a ton of musicians or artists.
All these gurus say inside of.
Or poets. And I'm always really fascinated about how they do what they do, because I think that when we gather enough information, we can kind of take a little like piece of this idea and a little piece of that idea and allow ourselves to come up with a whole picture for us that feels fantastic. You have creative powerhouses around you, whether that's on social media or that's in your town, right? Go to your local art gallery.
Okay, find other creatives and see what their process is like. The question is, do other creatives talk about their process online all the time? I don't think that's necessarily true. I feel like I follow, I have friends who are painters and stuff like that. I see like them working on a painting, for example, like, here's the painting in progress, or here's me at a gallery opening. But I don't see a lot of content created about how they go about creating, how they get ideas or whatever. So just because someone is an active creative on social media doesn't mean they're necessarily talking about their process. Just putting that out there.
Gallery, go to a museum, go see how other creatives work. It doesn't matter if you're making content creation about your cleaning business or your coffee shop. Getting inspired by other creators is going to make you a better creator.
Can you talk about maybe the people you're inspired by creatively? Maybe she's going to. All right, I'm going to let her talk.
I have found that I work better in.
Okay, so she's like, go find other creatives to follow. She's not even going to be like, I found these people, or I got this idea from this person, because she has advice for you that she is not going to follow, because this is a previous complaint I've had about Rachel Hollis. I'm not the only one who has this complaint about Rachel Hollis, but yeah. All right, she's not going to give us any examples. Cool.
In the energy of a space that feels really good to me, which is usually at home. I think I create better content when I'm by myself than when I'm with other people, unless it's speaking. And then obviously I need other people around me. But it's been probably a couple years now, right? That
COVID.
We've all been inside of working from home. And I'm still figuring out how to format an SD card or do the audio. And there is really.
You have professional people. You had a whole team of 60 people. You're saying that one person on your team could help you troubleshoot sound? I mean, I'm not saying stuff doesn't go wrong sometimes when you're recording, because it does. Like sometimes you record and you realize the internet reset partway through and the sound changed or something like that. But in general, like troubleshooting these little issues, if you've been creating content even for, I don't know, 6 months, you've worked through most of them. So if you still can't format an SD card, I'm not sure if that might be a you thing. I'm just saying.
Incredible power as a content creator in knowing how to do everything yourself. It is always elevated when I can work with someone else, but the ability to create on your own is really powerful, because then you don't get into a habit of believing that you need someone else in order to help you put content out into the world. I focused this conversation on the 3 areas that I am most often creating content in: this podcast, my Sunday email, and for the books that I write. I've done a few episodes of the podcast on how to write a book, and you can go look those up. And they're really popular episodes. I think they've been helpful to people, so maybe they'll be helpful to you. But when it comes to my creative process for book writing, it's so much different than it used to be. It's evolved so much over time, and it's so much different than any other content that I create in any other way.
The woman who asked the question asked how you figure out what you're going to write in your email newsletter. So if you want to bring this other stuff in, that's fine, but we're not at the original question. Also, I will say this video makes me wish I put my eyelash extensions back in. I keep looking at hers and thinking I should put mine back in, but
when I am writing books, as I am right now, I'm working on a book that I'm turning in this fall before I go on the Rage Talk Live tour, which I hope you all are coming to hang out with me. But I'm working on a book, and I have been writing this book in my head for 2 years. I think it's the best work I've ever done, at least for me, because it feels like it's aligned not just with what I want to put out into the world and the conversation that I want to have with y'all, but I also feel like it's the healthiest creation process I've ever been inside of.
okay, she said inside of 3 times in 5 minutes, which is hilarious. But the rumor has it that this book is going to be a health book. I forget what the working title is, but I think Kaya's World covered it. I'll see if I can find a link, but it's going to be a health book, we think. I think it was going to be called like What the Health or something like that. She's copyrighted a few things. Again, covered by Kaya's World. I'll just link it.
I tried this process of could I fully write the scene of a movie in my head before I ever sat down and put it on paper. And I tried this for a couple of months. And when I sat down to finish, I immediately went into flow state. It felt so easy. I was like freaking out, like in the back of my head, like, don't mess this up. Don't get distracted. Don't move. Don't get up to pee. Don't do anything, because I just felt like it was flowing. That's the book writing.
So you visualize the book?
Process for me is I'll sit with things for a long time, and I'll think of them from different angles, and I'll ask myself questions, and I have my phone with me, or I'll have my journal with me, and I'll write down notes or questions or things that I'm wondering as I go to pull back in when I actually sit down to write. All right, let's talk about.
I didn't understand any of that. You think of ideas and then you write down questions you have, and then you sit down and write and achieve flow state. If you followed that, and you could write in a comment what she's talking about, that'd be great. But I did not follow
This podcast, because I think that for each and every one of us, we have foundations in our content creation. And for me, that is my podcast. Basically, I get inspired to come up with a podcast idea based on what you are asking, literally using the podcast hotline.
You're not even answering the person's hotline question in this video. We're like halfway through and you still haven't talked about how you figure out email topics yet.
To see what people are wondering and like how it can be helpful. I try and check my DMs about once a week. I don't get to all of them for sure, but I definitely do try and go check in, and I'll see questions there that will inspire a conversation. And what I'm looking for there.
But if we don't have a million Instagram followers, or we don't have people writing to us, where are us normal people supposed to get our ideas?
There is questions that feel like they're relevant to.
I can count the number of times, maybe on maybe 20 times I've been asked a direct question by a member of my audience. The rest of the time it's just me sort of realizing like, people seem to be struggling with this. Maybe I should create some content around it. But in terms of directly being told what people want, I don't, as someone with a much smaller audience than Rachel Hollis, I don't find this happens to me really.
More than just one person. And I'm looking for content that I feel like I can add some value to. All of us need to ask ourselves, what is the unique value that you bring to the conversation? You have a unique world perspective. My show is it's my perspective. I don't believe I have the answer. I just have my ideas, right? And I'm a
yeah, we all create things from our own perspective, but like, how do we figure out what to talk about from that perspective? That's
Big believer that when we absorb things, we sort of take a little bit here and there. We don't take everything as gospel, but that I can sort of put my thoughts out and maybe there's something in them that will be helpful to you too. If I believed that everything had to be the exact perfect answer for every human listening, there's no way I would have put nothing out into the world. The inspiration comes from what I'm hearing from you guys, what I'm seeing in the world. If I'm seeing things that I'm like, oh man, someone needs to talk about that, I'm like, oh, dang, I probably maybe should be the one. My greatest inspiration comes from the stuff that I am personally going through and working on, and the stuff that my family, my friends, the people I love are also going through and working on. If you're looking for content, create the content you needed 10 years ago. Create the content that your best friend, that your mama, that like they need to be lifted up and they need to be inspired. And that's who you create for. Me trying.
I've heard before, and I'll see if I can find the source, that basically if you are writing a book that is supposed to help someone else, it's going to flop. But if you write something for yourself, that it's going to be much more inspired. But if you're like, oh, here, I'm writing this thing to help you, it's going to come off as sort of preachy and patronizing. Again, I feel like an author said something like this. I will see if I can find it and either link it in the show notes. If it's a longer piece or if it's short, I will put it on the screen. But yeah, it's giving advice to other people because you think they need it and you are up here and they are down here is not something that's going to translate well in written or any other creative form.
Trying to solve problems in my own life is always, always an incredible resource for what content I can put out into the world.
But if I own a real estate agency, I can't talk about the fact that I am currently having a problem with executive dysfunction, right? You know, um, people are following me for my real estate content in that theoretical example. I'm not everyone's like a life coach. Like we can't just like write about things that are going on in our lives unless it somewhat relates to our business. Anyway,
what I do to put it out in the world, I've also done an episode on how to start your own podcast. You can go listen to it. And that has a lot more information on the how-tos.
I'm going to go back when I edit this and I'm going to add a count to every time she plugs her own stuff. So when she says like, go to my Rach Talk, download this podcast, listen to this, I'm going to put a little count on the thing of how many times she shills her own products in this 14-minute and 30-second video.
But I batch all of my work based on the type of work that it is. So I'm going to try and knock out a few podcasts today. And then I will have episodes for the next couple of weeks. I like to be ahead, but not too far ahead. That's not for everybody. So I know so many podcast hosts they're way far out on their shows. And I think that's great. I just like the opportunity that if you are hearing me talk about something, it's in real time. It's within the last couple of weeks that thing has happened and you're getting to hear about it. Because to me, this is about the connection that we have, right? It's about us having a conversation with each other.
I'm super curious if we go back and look at the Rise Together podcast. I don't know if Dave got the Rise Together podcast in the divorce, but I'm curious if we go back and look around the time when they got divorced in 2020, May or June of 2020, right? I'm curious to see how many episodes they had in the can that Dave and Rachel had recorded together. You know what? Let's check it now. iTunes keeps only displaying 10 episodes, and I have to keep clicking show 10 more episodes, show 10 more episodes. So hold on a sec. So Rachel Hollis says that she doesn't create things super far ahead of time, right? In terms of podcasts. She might record a couple of episodes, a couple of weeks ahead of time, but she doesn't kind of book stuff like months in advance ahead of time. And I wanted to see if she practiced what she preaches at a place where we could easily check this, which is when she and Dave announced their divorce. So according to today.com, it looks like they announced their divorce on June 9 of 2020. Okay, keep that date in mind. Now, at that time and before that, they had the Rise Together podcast. So after clicking load 10 more episodes a bunch of times, we have gotten to here. So it looks like the last time Rachel and Dave posted together was on May 21st of 2020. And then it looks like May 28, I did click through and then it made me reload them all again. There wasn't any mention of Rachel in it. And then episode 99, which is June 18, it says a very special message from Dave about the future of the podcast. So at this point, he's recording kind of new episodes. So it does look like in the case of Rise Together, she has not, recorded a bunch of content ahead of time. Thanks for going on that tangent with me. Let's continue.
So the last area that I'm regularly creating content is for my Sunday email. I've been writing my own email.
This is the actual question asked. So this is a 14-minute, 38-second episode. We are beginning to talk about the audience member's question at 9 minutes and 45 seconds.
My own Sunday email. I've been doing it for years. So if you're on my email list, every Sunday you get a letter from me. And if you're not on my email list, that seems bananas and you should totally go sign up. And if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be,
oh my God, this is going to be so fun to go back and count.
In the description. If you're listening to this episode, it'll be in the show notes. Go sign up. It's a Sunday email for me. It's possible that if you're listening to this, you're like, email. It's 2022, Rach. What are you talking about? Email. Yeah, email. Email is the only access to your audience or your customer that you own. If Instagram died tomorrow, I would no longer have access to 1.5 million fans. You need a way to contact your customer, your fan base directly. You will always get more revenue from an existing customer than a new one. Let me say it again. You are always going.
Are people who are on your email list your people who have bought something from you? I don't think that that's true. Also, I'm curious how big her email list is. I bet she doesn't tell us.
To make more sales with someone who's already bought from you. I'm so pumped when new people come into the ecosystem. Someone just on the hotline said, "Oh, I just started listening to you a few months ago." And I was like, "Really? How cool. That's so rad."
Really? I wasn't completely canceled for you?
But my focus is on taking care of the people who are already here. And I think that by taking care of the people who are already here, they tell their friends. They do all the promotion that I don't need to promote myself because they're like, this chick keeps showing up for us, so we're going to show up for her. Not to mention that if you ever want to run a Facebook ad, an Instagram ad, TikTok, those email addresses are how you're able to target people. So all of that to say,
you can also target website visitors. You can also target demographic and audience interests. You can also target people who have consumed your content in a certain way, like watched a certain portion of your video or, attended an event, as they RSVP'd on Facebook. Email is not the only way that you can target people with ads. That's it. That's all I want to say.
My Sunday email. I lay out my whole week in terms of what is launching in a Google Calendar. I know there are cooler ways, guys. That's just not what I use. I've forever used a Google Calendar, and it'll say Sunday email, Monday we've got a quick word going up on podcast, Tuesday we've got a podcast episode, YouTube's dropping, it'll say everything that's happening, and every single one of those is color coded. So email is blue and YouTube is yellow and podcast is purple, and that way I can see at a glance that fast. My brain knows, oh, this is how much we have going on this week. The reason I mentioned calendar is the calendar is where I look at all the things that are happening during the week. If there's an episode I really want to talk about, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I pull that into an email. But I make sure that that is surrounded by stuff that does not help me in any way. I do this a lot. I do a Sunday email a lot.
Okay, so make sure in your email you promote your own stuff. Also promote other stuff. But are you going to give us any like ways that you figure out like what to write about a little bit more concretely?
Called like 5 things I'm loving or 3 things I can't. That does not help me at all. I don't make any money off that. I'm not using affiliate links. I'm literally just telling you brands and products and things that I am personally using that I think you guys would like, because I really love when people do that. What I hope is that you feel like I'm a resource for like, oh, she's going to give me good stuff. So I'm going to keep opening the email, because the email is not just a marketing play.
I feel like the average person doesn't really care what kind of lipstick I'm wearing right now, or what kind of coffee mug I feel like you guys don't care about that, right? I don't know if that would make compelling email content. I mean, Oprah has her favorite things, but like there's just a small group of people that can consistently put out that content without it either being affiliates or without it being boring. Same.
It's also cool stuff. There's certain things in the past that I'm like, oh, I can't do that anymore because I'm a mom, or I'm going to be 40 next year. It seems, and then I'm like, whose rules are you playing by? And that's what I talked about in the email. So sticking to what's going on in your real life, what feels relevant to you. I think we always want to connect with people more than we want to connect with a brand. So speaking from your own experience in a way that makes sense for the audience you're speaking to, I love. So that's how I figure out.
Okay. Before she closes the video, I just wanted to give you time to notice what's in the foreground. There's like stuff on the ground. I just want to like go pick it up. Listen, I'm not like perfectly lit or anything. She's super well lit, and I kind of want to know what primer she uses or moisturizer. But yeah, the foreground is a little bit, like I said, I see stuff on the floor. Tell me if you notice that thing. Hashtag Caddy live stream bitch.
The email. And I'm going to not lie. I don't think that I'm the best person for how to grow your community, because my answer is always that the content is queen. Content is queen.
That's why she asked you about how you come up with the content.
If the content's good, the community will grow itself. There was a lot of information.
How is the content going to be good? I still don't get it.
And I hope that maybe that's what you were looking for.
No.
Please call the podcast hotline. I love creating content based on what you guys are wondering. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put the phone number here. That is my creative process. And I just want to say that you can find a process that works really well for you, and it will change based on the season of life that you're in. So just be open to the idea that your process may need to change and evolve and grow as you change and evolve and grow. That's my ideas for today, guys.
So your creative process is that you have a Google Calendar, and that you put things that are in the Google Calendar in your email, and then you think of other stuff and you write them down in a notepad. All right, just gonna let her finish.
And until I talk to you again, I want you to remember from the bottom of my heart, I love you.
The bottom.
And I'm rooting for you.
Yeah. Rachel didn't really give us any ideas for how to come up with the content, except to come up with our own creative process, and then sort of gave us hers, which seems to involve a notebook, a Google Calendar, and giving advice that she would have needed 10 years ago and listing things she likes. But for the rest of us, I thought I'd give a little bit of a framework for how we come up with ours. Now, for the marketing company, we have a newsletter that goes out once a month, and we have a once a month newsletter for each of our co-working spaces. There are 2, one in Maine and one in New York State. So we're basically writing 3 email newsletters. So the very first thing that we do with our email newsletter is we come up with a format. So for example, for the marketing newsletter, we have a brief letter from me. It's like a few sentences. And then we have 3 links to like sort of trends in marketing or interesting things. We have a client spotlight. And then we have a, book your appointment, talk to Nicole, whatever. And then we have our social media links. Okay. So we follow that format every time. So the actual content we're really creating is we need to find 3 interesting links. We need to find a client to spotlight. And I need to write a few sentences, which I do at the end, seeing the links and seeing the client. I try to kind of tie it together, or I bring up, something that I think, thematically would connect the ideas together. For the co-working space, we have a little brief thing at the beginning. So if there's anything new, like we got a new phone booth in Maine last month for the co-working space. We might be, hey, we're working on this, or we're talking about doing this kind of programming, whatever. So a little kind of note at the beginning. And then we have 3 events that businesses would care about going on either online or generally in the area. So it could be a regional chamber mixer. It could be a workshop about branding that is being offered for free by the SBDC, something like that. And we try to, vary it. And we make like little calendar icons that have the date on them so that people can see at a glance when these things are happening. And then we have a long list of business resources for each area. So, grants that are available in certain areas, or economic development initiatives, or interesting conferences. So we have a whole list of those, and we pick 2 of them at random a month and put them in the newsletter. So since we've already kind of front loaded the list of the, business resources, the 2 things we put at the end, essentially we have to look online to find 3 events that we want to feature. And then I write a little something for the beginning. So we're not every month, we're not like looking and saying like, okay, what are we going to do this month? And the way that it's structured, it doesn't rely on someone writing a 1,000-word essay every single month, because the reality is, A, not everyone's going to read it. B, if I'm going to write something that long, I want it to be widely available online, not just in the newsletter. And C, if we share a bunch of different links, we can see what people click on and understand what people are interested in. So the very first thing is to think of a format, and then very quickly you realize that, oh, I don't need to like reinvent the wheel every month because I have a template and I just need to fill it in with new information every month. So where do I get that information? First of all, I have a account with Feedly. I was grandfathered into their free plan. I think now they like charge money if you have more than a certain amount of feeds coming in. But essentially, I subscribe to a bunch of different marketing blogs, a bunch of different social media blogs and stuff like that. And what I do is I just kind of look at the aggregated content and I see if there's any trends. So for example, I might open it up and see like, oh, Clubhouse just changed the way they're structured and now they have private rooms or something. I'm literally making that up. I don't think that's actually true. But if there's something like that going on, multiple websites are going to be writing about it. And so that shows me kind of thematically what's going on in my industry. So if you are, I don't know, in the hairdressing industry and there's this new trend where people are faking French braids, if you subscribe to a bunch of hairstyling blogs, you're going to see that reflected in that content. Another thing that I do is I really like Reddit a lot. I follow a bunch of subreddits around subjects that I like, marketing, small business, that kind of thing. And I see what people are talking about in there. And sometimes that gives me an idea of a video I'm going to make or just something for the newsletter. But in general, we'll see the articles. And then Reddit is kind of where real people talk about it. It's where real people, because you're anonymous, you're writing text, it's just a bunch of conversation. So you can kind of have a back and forth and sort of get some feedback and not just the sort of news headlines that you would get on a blog or a news website. Obviously, TikTok algorithm serves me up a bunch of marketing related content because I consume all kinds of different content there. And what I do is I like take those, ideas that I'm getting from those places and I dump them into a spreadsheet. So, I have, potential ideas. If there's a link I want to share, I'll bookmark it and I'll share it with Jessica, who helps me put together the newsletter. I'll be like, hey, I want to feature this month, that kind of thing. And, so if we're both kind of looking out for interesting things and we can kind of collaborate, the ideas go in the spreadsheet. And then when it's actually getting put together, we'll talk about it on Slack or under the Asana task. But usually in Slack, we'll talk about kind of like, okay, this is how this is coming together. it seems like there's a lot of information about this, but it seems contradictory. Nicole, like, which one do you think we should share? That kind of thing. That's where those sort of things would come up, is in the conversation. But just collecting the ideas somewhere, because sometimes you can't act on them all at once. Sometimes there are weeks where I open Feedly and there's nothing that jumps out at me, but I have plenty of ideas banked up for when I do need them, so that it's not so much pressure every time to, hope that people are talking about something interesting on the internet this week. So I hope that that helps. So some of it is creativity, but some of it is just kind of being organized, and also not giving yourself too big of a task to do. If your job is not creating content full time, you don't have hours a month to devote to writing a daily or a weekly email newsletter. So you have to be able to get in and out and move on to the parts of your business that actually make money. And I respect that. But there is nothing wrong with having a bit of a formula, coming up with systems that work for you. Because, yeah, if you want to write a book in your head for 2 years, that's fine. But the reality is that a lot of us have less time and need to carve out places in our life where we have the space to be creative. Like this afternoon, for example, I was not planning on recording a video, but I'm alone in my office and I was working on something else, and I saw that I had about an hour and a half, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to record a quick video because I'm feeling creative right now. I have the time to do it, so why not? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you have any gurus you want me to react to, Rachel Hollis has been the most popular video I've ever posted, oddly enough. So hopefully this video helps. But I'm really trying to get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers. So this is my one plug. If you can subscribe to me at my YouTube channel, that would be great. You can see past Nicole Reacts episodes there. There's a playlist. Or if you want to check out, there is a whole Nicole Reacts section of the website on the blog. If you want to go, and I have like 1,800 blog entries. I haven't quite talked about everything yet, but I've talked about a lot of things. I'm always open to ideas. I don't have a hotline, but you can leave a comment on this video if you have a guru, a specific video, or even a topic you want me to talk about. I could probably find a guru talking about it. So if you're more shy, you can use the contact form on the website and it'll get to me that way. So again, thank you so much for watching. It's always fun to spend time doing this kind of thing. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Take care.